Speaking of big games coming up, though, there are two that we have to talk about that happen well before any of those CPL games on the weekend. This Wednesday, we have two Canadian Championship semifinal first legs. We'll start here on the east side of the country, the one that you and I, Mitchell, will be going to. Forge FC hosting Toronto FC for just the second time in their history. This is very, very exciting. Local, I don't know if it's really a derby if they're not in the same league, but there's two communities that have rivalries. Obviously, Ticats and Argos. That's a big rivalry in the CFL, and these two teams have a lot of overlap, I would say, in terms of even staff, but fan base for sure. Mitchell, how excited are we for this one and to see Forge get another opportunity against TFC?
Yeah, I mean, very excited. This is a game that I think has been, whether they say it or not, it's kind of been in the back of Forge's head for the last, well, probably since the draw came out a little bit, knowing what they were able to do against CF Montreal and knowing they wanted another opportunity to go against Toronto FC. And again, knowing it's two legs, which will make it interesting. And but the time between the two legs is an important factor to consider as well, because
a long time.
It's 6.5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, the second leg is August 27th, I think.
Yeah, so quite a while between the two legs, which makes it kind of interesting in how they approach it. It's almost more of a one game than it would be if they were going to BMO next week, which again makes it almost basically a final for this Forge team, and they're going to want to come out and put their best foot forward and get a win at the end of the day in order to set themselves up well. I know that obviously they didn't do that against CF Montreal and kind of could have regretted that, obviously didn't, but this is going to be a game that Forge is absolutely going to want to win, and it's one where it's two teams that defensively have been not great recently, and that's going to make for a fun game, I think, because it could be another roller coaster match with Forge FC involved, as we've seen in the past couple.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, Forge gave up 3 goals last game, but TFC gave up 4. So,
is that your score prediction?
You know what?
Told you we were good at math on this show.
Can you imagine a 4-3 Canadian Championship game? Maybe, but yeah, this will be fun. As you said, no reason to leave anything in the tank for a second leg, because that is miles in the distance, and it's going to be fun. I mean, last time we saw TFC play in Hamilton, it was that 2020 final, which we played in June 2022. It's been a kind of a mouthful to explain a few times, but it was a great game. 1-1 over 90 minutes. I think Pozuelo scored for TFC, but then Tristan Borges scored the equalizer. And I was talking to him last week about it. It was kind of a weirdly exactly like the 2019 CPL final, where Borges misses a penalty and then scores a screamer from pretty much the same angle. So again, he's a player that we've seen produce in these big moments. David Chouanier has produced in these big moments. I've got my eye on Jordan Hamilton, maybe coming off the bench in this game. We spoke to him last week as well. He's extremely motivated for this game. I don't know if everybody remember, but he was not part of Forge in that 2020 final. He was still in Ireland at the time. He was telling me about how he watched that game from Ireland. He has not played against Toronto FC yet, and since he left the club. He won the Canadian Championship with them 3 times. He really, really badly wants that chance to play against them, and he wants to score in this game. So interesting to see if he gets an opportunity. And it'll be fun. If you are in the Toronto or Hamilton area, get your tickets. I'm sure there are some still available. It should be another big crowd at Tim Hortons Field on a Wednesday night. And then after you enjoy that, hopefully resounding Forge FC victory, because we do not have to be unbiased in these Canadian Championship ties. It is clear where our loyalties lie. Anyway, after you watch that one, you turn your attention to the West Coast. I don't know if you can get over there fast enough, but you can maybe turn on a TV in time to watch Pacific FC play the Vancouver Whitecaps. Mitch, it's the same thing. Two teams fairly local to each other. A little bit more history between Pacific and the Whitecaps. They've played each other twice now in this competition. Both teams winning once. How do we look at this one, and how are you think Pacific are approaching it?
Yeah, I think obviously this weekend showed that Pacific have a blueprint for how they can really frustrate and play well against teams. I mean, again, this Atletico Ottawa team scored against basically everyone they've played against, and they couldn't manage to do it against Pacific. Some moments of luck, perhaps, but you need that when you're solid defensively. So I think they have the defensive weapons, especially at a Starlight Stadium, which is so compact and they're so good at to be able to really frustrate a Whitecaps team that on their day can be good offensively, but also have struggled in the last little bit there as well to find the back of the net. So yeah, I think that this is going to be a really fascinating one as well, and one that again Pacific not in the best form right now, really neither. Really, none of these teams are in great form right now coming into this, which makes it a little bit harder to predict. But I think we've seen both Pacific and Forge like in the big matches this year. Forge certainly in their history. They could just find another level, and sometimes when you expect them to the least, and it doesn't matter what their form has been coming up those games. Like these teams are full of guys who have won big matches of this magnitude before, so that makes it so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we mentioned, Pacific maybe a little pressure for this game. They left a lot of players at home over the weekend. They didn't travel because the Whitecaps traveled about as far as Pacific. They were in Montreal on Saturday. They drew 1-1 there. They've been on the road for actually a little bit. They were in Minnesota before that midweek. So maybe some tired legs in Vancouver, who did play quite a strong lineup in Montreal, and maybe might not have quite as much in the tank as Pacific at Starlight Stadium. Should be, again, a lot of fun on Wednesday night. We've seen how electric that atmosphere can be. We've seen the first time they played each other, how that atmosphere kind of pushed Pacific over the edge to win that tie. Last year, Vancouver their quality just took over. And that's also always a possibility in these CPL MLS matches. But, there is a lot of pride, I think, on the line, especially when these two teams go against each other. So again, not one that I would recommend missing. Both of those Wednesday, July 10th. Yep, July 10th. Forge TFC, 7 o'clock Eastern. Pacific Whitecaps, 7 o'clock Pacific time, 10 o'clock Eastern. And it's going to be great. We're going to be watching both games. There'll be lots of coverage at canpl.ca. We've got interviews coming out all week. We've spoken to lots of players from both Forge and from Pacific. We're hopeful to hear a little bit from, the other sides as well. I know that we've spoken a little bit to John Herdman, and we're probably going to hear from Benny Sartini as well this week. But again, this is the semifinals. Forge and Pacific, second year in a row that they're both in the semifinals of this tournament. Third time ever. Third time in 4 years that these are two semifinalists of this tournament. Maybe, hopefully, this is the year for one of them, or both of them, maybe, to see another Canadian Premier League team in the Canadian Championship final. But we will have to wait until after Wednesday to see if that remains on the table. Again, we will join you again next week. Good luck to Canada tomorrow night. They'll maybe need it, but it's going to be an amazing week of soccer, especially for Canadians. So I beg you all to enjoy it, and we will speak to you again on Monday. Thank you very, very much for joining us.